Dermal fillers are a very popular way to enhance, refresh, maybe correct some of those imperfections that we see. But a lot of people who rely on them don't really realize what it takes to create them. And so that's what we're talking about today, the story of Revanesse with the founder and CEO of Prollenium Medical Technologies, Ario Khosbin. Hello, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So you're coming from Toronto today.
Yeah, I'm sitting in a small, well, not a small town, but north of Toronto, a city called Richmond Hill, where I grew up, and this is the location of our headquarters now. We have two facilities actually in Canada. One is in a small city called Aurora, and the other one is in Richmond Hill, just north of Toronto. So.
And for anyone to truly appreciate the creation of Revanesse and Versa, that's what most people know here in the United States, they really need to know about your journey and how you got to this point. So let's go ahead and start back when you entered this realm of beauty and developing products that will enhance all of us. How did it start?
Yeah, it's I actually have done a few of these, and so it's good because it jogs my memory every time. I've been doing it now this is our 18th year, and I started the company when I was a lot younger. I was 20, I just turned 22. So I was, my mom had kind of been in this industry. She had a small medical spa, and she started it from scratch in one room, kind of doing spa treatments and pedicures and that type of thing. And eventually it had grown into this, kind of medical spa where they had a doctor there, they had lasers and those things. And I was, I was always around entrepreneurs my whole life, just because my family was very entrepreneurial. And at a young age, I started multiple businesses when I was a lot younger. I always knew that I wanted to do my own business. So, when I was about 21, 22, I was in university, and I was looking for work. I was studying business, at a university in Toronto called York. And I was trying to get a job, just like any other, 21, 22-year-old kid coming out of school. And I was a little bit older than the other kids because I had taken a year off in between high school and my university. So I was like especially hungry to move on with my life.
At 22.
Yeah, I was one of those guys that was just like, I had a plan of things I wanted to do. And one of them was, I wanted to have my own company. So, I didn't know what I wanted it to be in. I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. So, I was actually, the way the story goes, I finally got an interview at, it was a bank in Toronto. It's a Canadian bank called Royal Bank. And, I was really excited, and I kind of went to the interview, and, the lady asked me a whole bunch of questions. And then at the end of it, she's like, I can't give you this job. And it was for like a teller position. So I thought I was a shoo-in at that point. I'm like, if I can't get this job, I should just quit my life. So she told me, you're just too ambitious, for this type of a position. And I guess in the course of the interview, I had said all these things I wanted to do, and and maybe that wasn't the smartest thing to say. And she's like, I can't do it. I need somebody who's going to be here, for a while, and you sound like you want to do other things. So I kind of left, that interview really dissuaded, and I went home and I told my parents, and my mom's like, you should come work with me. You should come work with me. And I was like, I got nothing else to do. So I started helping her, with marketing and her website, and anything that she needed help with. I kind of tried to step in and help her. And during that period, I learned a lot about the business, and I really liked it. This was 19 years ago. So just to put it into context, this was like the beginning of HA fillers. It just started coming out. A lot of these treatments and therapies were new. So I was there for 6 months, and me and my mom were very similar personalities. So after a few months, I realized that her and I butt heads a lot. And but I'd seen enough in the industry that I kind of knew that I wanted to do something else. Not on the retail side. I didn't like the retail aspect of the business. I like the kind of wholesale aspect. So I decided to, set up my own company at that point. I was living at home. I didn't have any expenses. And I was, I was full of energy. I had a lot more energy then than I do now, and I was just ambitious at that point. I had my parents' support, which was one of the most important things, because I think if you don't have that type of, if you really want to be successful, you need people's shoulders to stand on, and you need support. And I think a lot of times people want to pretend like they did things on their own, but when you read the stories, like people's stories who been able to accomplish things, all of them had support systems in place. It's very rare to find someone with absolutely no support system that makes it. So my parents helped me. I worked from the home. I didn't have any expenses. The first year I literally just sat at my desk and I cold called doctors. And I was at that point I didn't even know what I was going to sell them. I just was calling them to see what they wanted to buy. And I had a small little. I borrowed $500 or $300 from my dad. And I had a computer for school, but I bought a printer, a scanner, and a chair. And I literally just sat there all day, and I phoned people up. And I remember at one point, one of the doctors told me he wanted to buy a specific laser. So I decided, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to sell lasers. And I went out looking for, the lasers. And my first idea was I was going to do like a secondhand laser business, which was, which was interesting. And it kind of led me into what I'm doing now. So I went and I started looking for secondhand lasers, and every time, I had some sort of a lead, nothing really worked out for me in that area. And for about a year, I didn't sell anything. I didn't make any money. It was a pretty terrible business. But after about a year, um, I actually decided that, this whole use thing is nonsense. I want to pick up my own line of fillers. So I went and there was a company in California at that time called Laser Scope. I don't know if any of the viewers remember it, but they had a couple really good lasers. And they didn't have any representation in Canada. So I emailed them and I said I'm interested in working with you guys. And the guy emailed me right back and he said, I'm going to be in Toronto next week. Meet me at the airport and we'll chat. So I was obviously a young kid, and I had like one suit. So I threw my suit on, and I had a gentleman that was my friend. He was probably in his 40s, and he was a pharmaceutical rep. And I begged him to come along with me just to sit there to give me some type of credibility because he was a bit older. So he actually joined me at the meeting, and I told him, dude, you don't have to say anything, just kind of like sit next to me and pretend you're with me. So this guy thinks I'm not just a kid. So we went to the meeting, and it went great. And they decided to give me the line, and that was kind of the beginning of the company. So a few months after that, one of my best friends, Kasha, I asked him to come and join, and we've been working together ever since. We've been running the company together and growing it together ever since. And we're still great. We're still friends. And so for the first few years, it was just him and I in a small office, and we sold lasers, and that's when we actually started to make money. So in the first few years, we started to make some money, and I kind of knew early enough that if I wanted to build something big, a distributor, it wasn't the answer for what I wanted to do. I wanted to have my own brand, my own line. So early on, we just we knew we wanted to get out of lasers, but we didn't know where. But I started, the more clinics I went to, the more I became interested in the consumable side of the aesthetic business, because you'd see all these clinics, using products, and they'd be reordering every month. Whereas with lasers, it's a feast or famine type business. You sell something, and they might not call you for another 4 or 5 years to buy something else. So it's a more difficult business, and I prefer consumable type businesses more. So HA to me was very appealing, and at that time there was really only Restylane. It was even before Juvederm. I think Juvederm had just filed in Canada. So I started looking around to pick up a HA filler to bring into Canada. And there was a ton of them. I mean, in Europe, and but I didn't want just any brand. I wanted to brand it under our own company. So I was kind of looking for a white label opportunity, hoping that I could build a company from start the company from white label, and obviously at that point grow it once we start making money from it. So I signed a deal with a German university back then for a product that was turned out to be an absolutely terrible product. But in those back then, we didn't really know. And the issue back then was people thought that if you can make something that lasts longer, it's better. Mm-hmm. So a lot of the companies were looking at materials that weren't as biodegradable. There was products that had plastics and polyvinyls, and they were cross-linked probably 1,000 times more than the products that we use now. And it was the wild west back then. Nobody really knew. So the product that we first got was a heavily modified filler. It was supposed to last longer. Once we started selling it, we realized that the problem with that concept is the body doesn't like anything that's foreign. Mm-hmm. So when you start shoving things in your body that are too modified, you can run into these issues with biofilms, nodules, sterile abscesses, things that kind of look like infections, but they're more like allergies. So we did that for a few years, and that was a huge lesson for us because we knew what type of a product we didn't want. We had a lot of experience with the adverse reactions, and we knew why it was happening after a while. So at that point, I decided that this white label thing's not going to work. We had enough, there was enough opportunity that I knew that if we could develop our own product and use the knowledge that we had from all of the issues with this previous product. I mean, I really felt that we could build a great product from it. So at that point, we actually went out and we signed a deal with a university in Toronto called the University of Toronto. It was an R&D deal, and the purpose of it was that we would pay them, to kind of do research on our behalf. And that turned out to be a huge mistake. I found that a lot of these academic institutions, they do research, but if it's in their own interest, and if it aligns with what they want. So, we were paying every month, and after about a year, I realized we're not really getting anything out of this relationship. So, and I'm not a scientist. I don't know anything about the science side. I do know a little bit now just from working in the industry. Back then, I really had no clue. I actually barely made it out of high school chemistry. So I was like, I need somebody that knows about science. So I was able to. There was a gentleman in the U.S. that I had contact with who was an HA scientist, and he was working at a few companies. And I called him up and I said, "Look, I need somebody that can go into this university and tell me if I'm spending my money the right way." And he's like, "I'm busy, but I have this other guy in New Hampshire. He's a great guy, and you should give him a call." So his name was Steve Kennedy. So I actually called him up, and I remember my first impression was, I didn't really like him that much. He was kind of very blunt, to the point. And anyways, we ended up flying him up to Toronto, and we had lunch with him. And my first impression was I didn't think I could work with him. He was kind of like no filter, kind of blunt. Said things the way they were, which turned out to be, an excellent thing for me. So first impressions, I really don't believe in first impressions anymore. I think sometimes you meet people and you make judgments based on, their personality that can be incredibly misleading and wrong. And anyway, so with Steve, we ended up hiring him. We sent him into the university, and apparently the professor didn't like him either. So after a couple of days, she kicked him out of the lab, and it was because he was asking her tough questions about what they were doing, and she didn't like it. So he came back to us and he said, "Look, guys, you're spending all this money, and these guys are really not doing anything for you. It's a complete waste of your money." And he's like, "There's a postdoc there that she's excellent, and if she wants to leave, she hates it there." And kind of in that moment, I made the decision, like, let's hire these guys, and let's go out and find a lab. I mean, how hard could it be to find a lab? I'm sure it's easy. So we ended up hiring Steve and the postgrad, and we set out to, find a lab. there's one incubator in Toronto. It's called Mars, and at that time, the University of Toronto was kind of running the incubator. The professors at the university were the ones who were mostly using the space and they were in the labs. And because of what had happened with this previous relationship with the professor, us leaving and canceling the agreement, they kind of stonewalled us and they wouldn't let us in. So what I thought was going to be simple turned out to be a huge task. I mean, we didn't have any, at that point we had very limited income. I couldn't afford to build a lab. I needed something that was, turnkey. So I told Steve and Shadi, who was the postdoc scientist, I said, you guys kind of hang out in this office and read some books, and we're gonna go try to find some lab space.
And you found one, right?
Yeah, so we actually got really lucky. We looked for a few months, and one day I called some innovation center, and they told me, look, there's a company at York University, which was the university I went to, and they're looking at leasing out their lab space. So we went there, and the guy gave us a tour. It was like this. It was perfect. It had everything we needed. It was about 2,000 square feet, and I was just like, wow, if this guy will help us out, I mean, we can really build here. And at the end of the tour, he kind of pulled me aside and he said, look, we're going bankrupt. This was in '08 when all the housing bubble, crashed and a lot of companies were struggling. And he pulled me aside. He's like, I need to shut this place down and we're going to go bankrupt. If you're willing to, take the employees and take over the lease, I'll sell you the equipment for, pennies on the dollar and you can take this place over. And I mean, thinking back on it, I mean, that was kind of a huge turning point because if that didn't happen, we wouldn't even be here, really. So it was just completely serendipitous and, worked out.
Because you went from sales and creating a company to doing the research and creating your own products.
That's right. That's right. So we ended up hiring all of the scientists that worked there. Most of them still work for us. And we started on an R&D project with the team. And that project was about 2.5 years, where we literally took every single product on the market and we reverse engineered it, including the one that we had that was a terrible product. So we just ripped everything apart. We wanted to know what the nuances were, what the differences were. And what we found was the product that we had was just too heavily modified. And the ones on the market that people generally liked were low levels of modification or cross-linking. And then during that period, we found some things that we can improve on. Mm-hmm. But during that time, we're working off subsidies from the Canadian government because when you're doing research, you get government subsidies here. So that was paying our salary costs, and the rest of the money was coming in from the little sales that we had. And we did that for about 2.5 years, and then we got to the point where we went to the bank and we asked them for some money to help us build a factory.
And that's significant because...
And they gave it to us. So 2.5 years, we were really confident in the product, and we built a factory in Aurora, and that's the factory that we produce all of the product from now. So, sorry, I didn't mean to...
Well, that's significant because isn't that you're the only manufacturer in North America?
Yeah, so it's actually it's a weird thing. Most of the products that are sold in the world are coming from Europe, and it's kind of an incestuous relationship. So there's one company, and a whole bunch of the scientists left and they went out and started their own company. So the technologies are very similar because they're almost like rip-offs of one another. And then there's one other company in, Restylane, which is the original product. It's kind of a very different technology, but for the most part, the technologies are very similar. And so when we did the reverse engineering, we saw, what people liked, what people didn't like. And that's kind of when we started to form our own product. And the experience helped us get to where we were for sure.
And I know that research and development, not only very important to you, a top priority, but also safety. And why is that?
Well, because of the experience that we had, with the first product that we sold where it was heavily modified. We had issues with swelling and all these things. Because of that experience, we're like, efficacy is important, but if the product's not safe and patients are having issues, doctors are having issues, then who cares about the efficacy? First and foremost, we want safety. So that was our goal, was safety from the beginning. And I really am proud of the product we have now because I think it's the safest in the world. It's the biocompatibility is excellent. Very few headaches for physicians and patients. I'm incredibly happy with the technology that we have now. So, and it was a journey getting there for sure. We went through a lot of bumpy roads, but we're at a point now where I'm like very confident with what we have. So.
And I
Yeah.
know that you had mentioned this earlier, that there is a desire to have a product that lasts longer. And I understand that you've figured out a way to make sure it lasts longer and still be something that the body can tolerate.
Yeah, I think one of the issues in the past was this idea that the more you modify something, the longer it's going to last because it takes the body longer to break it down. And in fact, it's the opposite. I mean, the more you modify something, the more the body wants to get rid of it because it thinks it's some sort of a foreign body. So most of the time, what happens is it attacks it, and that kind of can look like an allergy, or it forms a capsule around it to kind of section it off so that it doesn't affect you. Like I don't know if any I have a piece of lead stuck in my finger from when I was 5 years old. I don't know if you remember those little pencils where you push it out the back and another would come. I was
Yes.
playing with it. I remember I was in kindergarten. I was playing with it and I shoved the piece into my finger, and it's been there for 35 years, and it's been kind of encapsulated in my finger, and it's not going anywhere. And something similar will happen with a filler that's too heavily modified, depending on the patient. So you want you want it to hide in plain sight. You want the filler to be biocompatible so that when you put it in, your body knows what it is and slowly degrades the product, as opposed to put something in that it has no idea what it is, so it ends up attacking it. So that's really kind of the simplest way that I can explain it. And I think sometimes when you try to get too complicated with these things, and you don't, if you can explain it in a simple way, you understand it, and that's the most simple way to explain it, really.
And I've read the word that you use is biocompatibility. And so now you have products in 120 countries. And here in the United States, we know mostly Revanesse with Versa.
Right.
So what's next for Prollenium and for you?
Yeah. We're, in 2011, we started the manufacturing. 2018, we had the FDA approvals, which was a huge turning point for us. Nobody realizes how, coming from Canada and other countries, nobody really understands the size of the US market until you're there. It is literally a world unto itself, and so once we got into the US, we realized that we have all these other products that are all over the world and people love, and we want those products to be in the US because we've had such a great feedback from the US market, and the product has been so warmly received. We realized that there's so much room for growth with other products as well. So we're gonna try to be rolling out a new product every year in the US, and we're putting a lot of focus on the regulatory side and the approval side for other products that we have in Canada that we don't yet have in the States.
So we have a big appetite for fillers. Is that what you're saying here?
You do, and it's amazing. I feel like America in the United States is people are far more open to trying new technologies, whereas Canadians are more conservative. So it's almost like in Canada, people will use your product once you've made it big in the States, because then they feel like, oh, it's okay now. So we increased our sales like 50% in Canada just by getting FDA approvals, because that holds a lot of weight, but also because people are like, okay, well now it's something now, it's in the States. The US has that type of an effect on companies that it can take you overnight, and just launch you.
Okay, so what's next in the States? What's that next product?
We have a lip product that's going to be approved soon. We're hoping that's going to be called Revanesse Kiss, or Lips. I think now we changed it to. I got to go back to check. And then we have a volumizing product that we've developed. It's called Revanesse Shape. That's being sold in Canada, and we've had an unbelievable response on that. Because again, the volumizers, people are looking for stiffer products. And a lot of the times people think companies, in order to make the product stiffer, will modify them more to get to that point. And we didn't want to do that because we don't believe that the cross-linking should be so much more, because then you're getting into this, you know, foreign body reaction area. So we made some other changes, some really, you know, trade secrets in the product that give us the desired consistency in the gel without, you know, causing issues in the patients. So it's a fantastic product. Very proud of it, and we're starting a study hopefully next year in the U.S. and we've also developed, you know, a body product, which we're hoping that is going to be the next thing. And we've started work with a plastic surgeon here in Toronto that is going to be doing a study for us, and hopefully we're going to be launching out of the States in the next 4 or 5 years. We have a new under eye product that we're working on. We have a bunch of things. Oh, we have a biostimulator that's I'm very excited about. It's a combination of our HA gel with the biostimulating agent that can stimulate collagen in the skin and give a filling effect. So, you know, I really, what we kind of want the company to be is we want it to be the best filler company. We believe that nobody knows, you know, fillers as well as we do. And this is all we do. And we think we do it better than everyone else.
Fantastic. A very interesting story on how you went from point A to point B, where you are right now, because you've got many more points to reach in the future. Very exciting time. Anything else you want people to know about you or your company? I know you're a very proud father of 3 sons. Anything else that you want people to know?
3 boys. They keep me busy outside of work for sure. They're wonderful. And, you know, my, you know, just obviously we have such a wonderful staff here that, you know, I want to thank if they're going to watch, and our customers, you know, we would not be where we are as a company without the support of the people that, you know, helped us build this. And, you know, obviously I want to thank, you know, my family, my parents, and those people that so much support, and, you know, that we've had. And one thing I'm very proud of here is, you know, we have people. For the longest time, we had people working on this company. I remember we probably had about 50 countries represented that worked here. And so that's one of the most wonderful things about Toronto is you have people from all over the world that, you know, leave under, you know, circumstances that aren't the best. And the same as the United States, they come here to build a new life for themselves and their families. And, you know, we've been lucky to just have such a great wealth of cultural diversity in this company. I really feel it's made the company better and richer. So,
and that's part of your personal history too, immigrating from Iran during the Iranian Revolution. Yeah,
I mean, I'm so thankful to Canada, you know, because it took my family in when everything was happening. And, you know, my parents left with really nothing because, you know, we're members of a religious minority that's called the Baha'i faith. And when the revolution happened, I mean, the Baha'is were always kind of persecuted in Iran, but when the revolution happened, it was especially bad. So we were very lucky to be able to come to Canada. And, you know, I've never actually been back to Iran, but we have many people that work here from war-torn countries that have come here. And for the longest time, not a single person that, you know, we're all Canadians, but not a single person that worked here was born in Canada. And I remember asking, I'm like, where were you born? Where were you born? There was a guy here, his parents are from China, and I always just assumed he was born in China. I was like, where were you born? He's like, I was born in Canada. So the one guy that we had that was born in Canada was of Chinese ancestry. And now, I mean, now it's obviously we have some, but it's an incredibly diverse place, and there's so much wealth that you can draw from people's experiences from other countries. So, yeah.
I can tell not only you're a very smart person, but very humble and a visionary. So thank you so much for
you're gonna make me blush.
joining us today. And we can't wait to see what is next from Prollenium here in the States. Thank you again.
I really appreciate your time, and you know, it's a pleasure getting to meet you on camera.
You too as well. Technology is a wonderful thing. And again, today we've been talking with Ario Khosbin. He's the founder and CEO of Prollenium. Have a great afternoon.